Hi, this is Doug Brown, author of Tracker. Today I want to show you how to save your work in a Tracker zip file so the video and data stay together as a self-contained unit. The resulting file, which has extension TRZ, can be opened in Tracker just by double-clicking it. It's by far the best way to package your Tracker experiments. You can even include supporting documents like instructions or reports. We'll also take a look at Tracker's digital library browser and learn how to use it to organize and share your Tracker experiments in digital library collection files. I'm going to start by opening the library browser with this digital library button up here on the toolbar and looking at a TRZ file so you can see what I'm talking about. This Through the Loop experiment looks at a video of a toy truck going through a loop-to-loop track. In the right pane here, there's an HTML page with a thumbnail image and a brief description of the experiment. And if I hover over the tree node on the left, I get a tooltip that shows the metadata for the experiment, including searchable keywords there on the bottom line. And to open the experiment, you just double-click the tree node. Okay, so let's see how to create a TRZ file. Here's an experiment with a high-speed video of a falling ball that I've tracked. And I'm going to put this in a TRZ file along with a simple lab report that I've created. So to do that, we export the file. So I go up and I can either choose this Export Tracker Zip menu item, or I can click this Export Tracker Zip button on the toolbar. This brings up a dialog that lets me control everything in the file. So we're going to start at the top and work our way down. This top line is where we could put in the path of a HTML page for the library browser to display, but we're going to leave it blank so Tracker will make one for us. The first line you can see is for the name. That's not my name, that's the name of the experiment. After that we have the description of the experiment, the authors, one or more. Here we have the contact information. We can enter keywords. We can enter as many as we want. We just separate them by commas. And this bottom line is where we could enter a path to a web page. The library browser would show us a link to that page. It wouldn't actually show the page itself, just a link. Okay, I'm going to enter some data in these fields and then we'll continue on. Okay, now for the video options. By default, this Trim to Clip box is checked, which means that only the frames in your video clip will be included in your TRZ file. In most cases, that's a big space saver. You don't have to export the video, just the frames you actually use. I recommend you use one of the image formats. Nice thing about using images is that Tracker doesn't need a video engine to display them, so you can pretty much send this to anybody or put it on the web, and anybody that has Tracker will be able to open it. If you prefer, of course, you can choose a different format from this drop-down. Of course, sometimes you do want to export the whole video. In that case, you can uncheck the Trim to Clip box and the original video will be used. Don't forget though, you'll probably end up with a bigger TRZ file if you do this. Now this thumbnail settings button here lets you set the image, size, and format of the thumbnail image. The image can be the whole Tracker frame that we can see here, a main view with overlays, or the video only with no overlays. I'm going to choose the main view with overlays. You can also see there's a whole wide range of sizes available and a couple of different image formats. Now we're almost done, but I just want to point out this Add Files button at the bottom. When you click it, it opens this list of HTML and PDF files to be added to the Tracker zip. The list is empty right now, but I can add to it by clicking this Add button here. Well, first let me just show you the lab report that I'm going to put in there. Very simple. So now let's go back and add that. When I export the Tracker zip, the lab report file and all its images will be compressed right inside. Now I'm done. I just click Save As, navigate to the folder I want to save it in, and give it a file name, hit Save. You can see it stepping through the frames as it writes the video, and then when it finishes it offers to open the newly exported TRZ file. I'm going to accept that in just a second, but first let me tell you what we're going to see. The tracker experiment will open, of course, in Tracker, but my lab report will also open in the web browser. Watch this. Okay, there's the lab report. See the new tab. And here's the experiment. It's in a new tab in Tracker down here. If I'd added a PDF file to the Tracker zip, it would have opened in the default PDF viewer. So that's all there is to exporting a Tracker zip. You can now email it to anybody and be sure that when they open it, they'll have everything they need: the video, the data, the lab report, the whole experiment. Okay, now let's look some more at the Digital Library browser and learn how to organize and share our TRZ files. If you do it right, like I'm going to show you, then you can share them anywhere, including on the web. So the first step is to gather copies of the TRZ files together in a single folder on your computer. I'm using this folder called Tutorial that now has 3 TRZ files in it, the 2 that I showed you at the beginning, plus the new one we just exported. Now let's open that folder in the library browser. I'll just choose File Open to bring up this Open dialog box. We're in the folder itself right now. I could click on any of these individual TRZ files, but that's not what I want to do. I want to open the whole folder. So I'll go up a level, select the folder with a single click, and then click Open. Now if I click on the falling ball experiment, it displays the HTML documentation we created, and if I were to double click the file, which I won't, both the Tracker experiment and my lab report would open up just like they did a minute ago. So this is already pretty handy. It's nice I can inspect and open my TRZ files with the library browser, but I want to take it one step further and create what's called the Digital Library Collection XML file. So I'll choose File, Save As, navigate into the tutorial folder itself, give it the name Collection, and save it. Saving the file inside the tutorial folder is important, as we'll see in a minute. Now you can see that when I do that, an editor opens up, and we'll look at editing in a second. But first let me close the editor with this button here and just look at the collection. You can see the path to the XML file up here on the URL field. In fact, let's reopen the tutorial folder itself so we can compare the folder and collection side by side. Here's the folder, and here's the XML collection file. Notice that for the folder, the Open Editor button is disabled, so I can't make any changes. But for the collection I can, and that's a big advantage. So let's open the editor back up and make some simple changes to the collection. First, look at the top level folder here. It has a name that's shown in the tree and on the tab, an HTML file path which is blank, a base URL which is the path of the tutorial folder, and a resource path which for folders is disabled. So the very first thing I'm going to do, and this is important, is to clear the base URL. We can do this because we put the collection file inside the tutorial folder itself. And when no base URL is specified, then it defaults to its parent folder. That means that if we clear the base URL and keep the collection inside the tutorial folder, then it becomes totally portable, as you'll see in a minute. Now let's change the name of the collection to Tutorial Collection, just to distinguish it from the folder name. You see when I do that, it also changes the tab title. Since the HTML file field is blank, the HTML pane just shows the folder name and a list of the experiments. That's good enough in many situations, but if I wanted, I could specify a separate HTML page by entering a path or using the file chooser here. This might be used to display general instructions for the collection as a whole, for example, or even a link to a web page. If you do use a separate HTML page, then be sure to put it and its images inside the tutorial folder so the collection remains self-contained. Now let's select our falling ball experiment. It's the first one in the tree because they're alphabetized by file name, but I can click these Move Up and Move Down buttons to change the order. We can see that for our experiment, which is a Tracker zip file, both the HTML and resource fields have entries. The HTML field determines what gets displayed in the HTML pane, And the resource field determines what gets loaded by Tracker when you double-click the tree node. Note that these paths are not absolute, but instead are relative to the base URL, which is shown in green since it's not hard-coded, but instead inherited from its parent. If you look closely at the HTML path, you'll see an exclamation point, which means the HTML file is compressed inside the TRZ file. We're going to leave those fields alone. There's also some metadata fields which I can display by clicking this Show Metadata button. You'll recognize the metadata I entered when we exported the TRZ. And if you recall, I left the contact information blank. But since we can, let's add some contact information here. I'll put Cabrillo College. Maybe let's add a couple more keywords. How about acceleration and 210 FPS? Down here I could add any kind of additional metadata I want. For example, creation date or copyright, but I won't. Let's just glance at the metadata for a third experiment here. It's from Stan Dodds at Rice University. He's got videos of a pipe slipping and rolling on an inclined plane, part of a series done at different angles. This one's at 35.5 degrees. You can see he's done a really nice job of assigning keywords: motion, acceleration, rotation, roll, slip, incline, ramp, model. Okay, I have the collection the way I want, so I'll close the editor and save the changes. And since we've been looking at keywords, let me show you how they're used. When you enter a search phrase up here in the search field, it looks for that phrase in the title and all metadata, including keywords. For example, if I search for FPS, it finds our falling ball experiment because one of its keywords is 210 FPS. If instead I search for gravity, I get lots of hits, including our falling ball experiment, but also some Angry Bird experiments from Compadre and some videos from some online collections. I could also search by author or institution. So you can see it's well worth the time to do a good job with your metadata. Now let's take another look at the files on my computer. Here's the tutorial folder with the 3 TRZ files, and it now also has this XML collection file in it. Pretty compact and totally portable, remember, because we cleared the base URL of the collection. So I could just copy this tutorial folder to a local server and ask students to open the collection file in their own library browser. Or better yet, I could copy the tutorial folder to a web server and anybody could open the collection file by entering its URL in the library browser. Another option, I could zip up the tutorial folder, email it to a colleague, and then she could open the collection file no matter where she unzipped it. So to recap this tutorial, TRZ files are the best way to save your Tracker experiments, and digital library collection files are the best way to share them. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.